Folks, it is Friday afternoon at E3, and we are just now getting a look at Tomb Raider. It's been a long few days for me waiting for this moment, but now Carl Stewart from Crystal Dynamics and Carolyn Pettit from GameSpot are joining us here on stage, and I'm just super excited to get a look at it. Carl, thank you so much for coming on.
No problem. More than welcome.
Tomb Raider, of course, made quite a debut last year at E3,
Yes.
and you guys are back this year showing off more gameplay and a lot of sort of different environmental mechanics. How was the response from the press conference?
It was very good, actually.
Yeah,
It was very well received. I think we surprised a lot of people with the content that we showed.
Mm-hmm.
It was something that came out of the blue.
And so Lara Croft, of course, in this Tomb Raider, this is before she becomes the Lara Croft that we know or that we have played before. She's still the Lara we know and love.
Exactly, exactly. This is about a young girl, 21 years of age, first adventure. You know, Tomb Raider's been around 15 plus years now, and it kind of has that canon associated with it that really we want to take this opportunity to go back to the very beginning. So to tell an origin story which has never been told before.
One of the most iconic characters in video game history. And
Exactly.
So I'm going to be checking the chat here, folks. I'm live on Twitch in the chat room or getting emails through GameSpot chat or over Twitter to hashtag GameSpotE3. We're getting the gameplay ready for you in just a second, but we're really excited to have you here. Lara Croft, how did she get into this situation that she's in?
So we start the game where we start the game with her hung upside down, and she comes awake and realizes there's something terribly wrong, and then she ends up having to do the unthinkable and set herself on fire. But sort of as you learn throughout the game, you realize that she was actually wanting to go on an adventure for the first time. This is her very first time going out, and she meets up with a guy called Conrad Roth, who's a family friend, a bit of a mentor. She hasn't seen him in a while, and he has this harebrained idea to go looking for mysteries in the Dragon's Triangle. So
you know the Crofts have some weird friends,
yeah,
man.
so for her first adventure, she goes out all ambitious, and then within a few days, unfortunately, things go terribly wrong. And the Endurance is hit with a massive storm off the east coast of Japan, and she finds herself in this terrible position.
And here she is, looking the worse for wear and very distressed to see that
They must have gone inland.
there's no rescue awaiting her down there, and there's no
certainly
viable
not.
route off the islands.
Yeah, so what we're showing right now is a piece of code that it's kind of an addition to last year's introduction to Lara. You know, we showed two 15-minute pieces of content last year. The first part was all about the den. It was all about her kind of coming around, realizing that she's in trouble, has to break free. We taught you about the building blocks of the world, physics, burnable objects, and eventually she manages to escape this up onto this cliff top, this vista looking out over all this sort of mystery and wonder.
And
then
now she's in a vertigo-inducing. Is that log rolling slightly?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
You got to be careful. And now she starts making her way inland. You know, she's realized there's something wrong. She sees a life raft, and she thinks that some of her friends might be somewhere inside. So off she goes.
And I love these vistas that give you a glimpse that this is a place that people have been to before, and it has not gone well.
Yes, exactly. We're setting up the mystery.
So right now, as Lara kind of leaps and pulls herself up onto ledges, as she's always done in past Tomb Raider games, she doesn't do that with quite the natural grace and agility that we've seen her do it in the past. Is that something like, are those physical aspects of how she moves and handles herself going to evolve over the course of the game?
Yeah, certainly in this case, obviously she's just managed to break free from a situation where she's had a rebar stuck in her side and had to pull it out. So she's a little bit uncomfortable. That'll do it, you know?
It's a little more difficult.
Exactly. So the other side to it as well is that we want the player to almost feel like it's a real human character. So there's those attributes of her struggling to do things, falling, hurting herself. We want to make the player feel grounded in the world.
Okay.
You know, so as she moves around, she trips over objects, and you really have a sense of her being there.
And she almost gets clobbered by a collapsing plane wing.
Yes.
This is the life of Lara Croft, and I really think folks appreciate what you do here with the camera angles, adding sort of a sense of drama, but also a little bit of disorientation. Like, she's walking along that cliff, and you got that slight wobble back and forth.
Yeah. Yeah, we built an entire new dynamic camera system whereby we can now break the camera off for a particular situation. So in that case, you know, we break the camera off, we put it a little bit further over your shoulder, you get to see the cliffside, the vertigo, you start to feel like you're in that situation with her. And you remember, last year's demonstration, we had her in that tunnel, a real claustrophobic tunnel. And again, same thing with the camera. We broke it off. We put it right up intimately over her shoulder, and you really got a sense of her gasping for air. You know,
yeah,
So that's really our goal, is to make the player feel like when she goes through these situations, you're almost there with her and you're experiencing them.
Can anyone hear
Excellent.
me?
All right, we have some questions coming in about experience, EXP, sort of that kind of mechanic.
Yes, so we presented our base camp system, and inside the base camp system is survival skills, survival gear are two of the core things. And survival skills is all taken back to the XP, so your experience on the island in things like having to hunt for the first time, having to overcome some adversity for the first time. We reward the player with XP points, which then can be traded in for skill points to upgrade some of the elements that will help you see the arc of Lara as she grows. So she starts as a young, naive girl, and ultimately want to get her to an action-adventure hero. So we have to see that progress, and that progress is rewarded to you by actually participating and doing it in-game.
And so now she's come upon sort of a fire pit. Is she happy because it's sort of the remains of
No, this is
civilization, or-
in this scene alone, you can see her shivering. You see the cold breath coming out of her mouth. We really want to make her feel like, you know, she has no idea where she is. She's no idea whether her friends are alive. She's found this radio, this two-way radio, and it's probably the only lifeline she thinks she has. And she knows she needs to set fire. She needs to get warm. So
She needs to get warm, but
this
in the
scene
rain,
again is one of those
tough to
scenes
do.
that brings you closer to the character, gives her a personality, which, you know, in past games you've never really had that closeness to Lara Croft.
Obviously, there's kind of themes of survivalism going on here, as Lara's having here to create fire, to like maybe hunt for food. I mean, are those aspects things that maybe you have to kind of manage and be aware of throughout the game? Lara's like hunger, you need to hunt for food, or is it more just kind of woven into the story, or how?
Yeah, it's more about the character and
Okay.
survival than it is about physical. We're not going to have her, you know, drinking her own pee and picking berries. You know, we're not that kind of survival sim. We want to
Okay.
make sure we keep it on the high. So we're looking at survival action.
It's not
Yeah.
a
It's
Bear
about
Grylls
you,
game.
yeah, about you going through sort of the arc of what she's been,
Okay.
the situation she's been put under and what she's had to do to fight to survive. You know, we show it in the demo. It's actually a little bit further on inside of this, where she's forced to have to kill somebody for the first time. And rather than just giving Lara a gun and saying she can kill somebody, we want to put you in a situation where you feel like it's kill or be killed. You know, you've been forced to survive, and, you know, it's something which is a little bit uncomfortable when people watch it for the first time, but you really believe that, you know, you're seeing her grow. You're seeing the sort of turning point and the breaking point in our character.
Now, a lot of what we're seeing so far, I mean, this is obviously very still early in the game. Seems
Yeah.
like Lara's kind of going along, you know, a set path here in these early stages. During the press conference demo, I think I heard the term like dynamic exploration mentioned.
Yeah, so
I
this
think-
is
yeah.
So this is actually one of those first areas where it is early in the game. We're still teaching the player about the building blocks. You know, she comes into this space now and she sees a bow hung on a corpse. She's going to pull the bow down, and then we give the player an opportunity to explore.
Okay.
We have these, you know, these things that we're not an open world game.
No.
It's one of the big things that, you know, we try to communicate in that we've created these massive hub systems, which are hub systems that you can go in and you can see something half a mile high and you can climb all the way to the top and make your way back down. There's hours and hours of fun in them. But in this particular space here, we give the player an opportunity to learn how the bow works, learn how she's a little bit clumsy to begin with. She's got to go and hunt a deer now in a second, but it really sort of shows that we're moving away from the linearity of being forced down areas all the time. We now give the player some movement.
Yeah, because Tomb Raider's never been open world by any stretch, but I think exploration or the sense of, you know, venturing into kind of unexplored territory and having some freedom to kind of move around and find your own way has always been part of what made you feel like this adventurer.
Exactly, and that's one of the big things that we've changed when we start looking at the pillars of Tomb Raider. You know, it has a formula. It's been around such a long time that really, rather than us trying to create a new vision for Tomb Raider and forgetting who we are, we pulled apart the things that made us special over all those years. And exploration, of course, was one of those things. So for us now, it's about dynamic traversal. It's about giving the player the opportunity to truly be an explorer, right? That's what you want to be.
Yeah.
We don't want to force the player into a space where they got to jump from ledge to ledge. You don't feel like you're exploring.
No.
So really, these spaces allow the player, they know they're following a story.
Sure.
It allows the player to be able to go in, look at sort of the main story going on, as well as the secondary mysteries.
Now here we see a hunting scene, and she's clearly moved by the fact that she's killed this animal, and we know that she's going to be doing some killing later on that she sort of is forced to do by necessity. But here is it, again, you know, that folks are very curious about the survival stuff that Carolyn was mentioning earlier. this is sort of, once you establish this and get fed, then you can take on other objectives. It's not like you're just going to come across deer and be like,
no, I think this is played out. This is more contextual. This is more about she's gotten the bow for the first time. You know she needs to eat. We make it very clear that you've got to do something, which she's even remorseful. She's apologizing to the deer. It's like, I've got to eat you, sorry. But what we're actually doing is sort of teaching the player about how the bow works. Sort of the movement, the speed at which you can shoot an arrow. And that kind of progresses then to other animals. She'll have to force to kill some wolves that try and attack her. So it's a progression. We don't just want to give you the bow and say, go chase a guy and kill him. We really want you to sort of feel like the character is improving and growing all the way through. So in this space now, one of the things we taught you about last year was her survival instincts, which is a pretty important thing in the game. It's about understanding the world around you. She learns different things. We taught you about fire last year, and when you hit your survival instinct, you were able to see the burnable objects, and then once you do it, you're not shown it again. So it's basically teaching the player. In this case, we had that semi-large area where we still had to guide the player back. So we do it in a couple of ways. We have a map system built into the game. We have our survival instinct, which will give a little icon. But it's also sort of instinctual design, where the team have really laid out the levels to make it easier for the player to be able to come across a stream, and you naturally go, I came into this area at the height of a stream, water flows down, I now know my way up. And that allows us to be able to hide the HUD system, so we don't keep putting stuff on the screen.
So here we now see the skill system. So they're purchasing arrow retrieval, which I presume lets you recover arrows from enemies. So arrows might be something that are kind of in short supply, or you don't want to waste these kinds of things.
Exactly, and these base camps are dotted all over the island. There's probably going to be close on 100 plus of these dotted around, so you're never too far away. So if you've built up your XP or you've salvaged enough equipment, you can always find the next base camp to be able to make a quick upgrade, help you progress.
Can you talk a bit about maybe the sorts of upgrades that you'll see for, is it a linear set of upgrades, or do you eventually end up choosing between skills?
Yeah, you can choose between some of the upgrades. You don't have to buy them all. Obviously, we have to try and balance it, make sure it's right. There's no grinding. You're not going to get into a space. Just keep killing deer. We place them very carefully in so that you feel like it's kind of growing with you as the character throughout the story. So it's a smart system that allows us to be able to feel like you're a part of it, rather than just I'm building up my guns, I'm building up. But in terms of explaining a little bit more, one of the things that the studio were very keen on is making sure that we put it on the screen, and when we demo it, we can talk to it. So really at this stage, she's only had to learn about a small element. So we show you that, but we will over time now start to come back and show you how we progress.
So is that rain going to wash off some of that muck?
Yes, again, actually it does. Yeah, as soon as she gets wet, she gets clean again. So yeah, it's pretty cool. And then she's just heard from Roth. If you remember from last year's demo, the second part of it was where we met Conrad Roth. And he was injured, he was attacked by wolves, and you had to go and get the medical kit. So basically we're piecing the story together now. She just heard from Roth on the radio, and now she's got to make her way all the way up to him in the base camp.
And then all the time sort of finding these structures and this evidence of life and evidence of apparently drunk life. There's a ton of beer cans on the floor there. But this island holds many secrets, and
there's a lot of mystery on the island. We try and set it up that there's a ton of things going on. In this particular case, one of the scavengers that you saw earlier on in the den system, they've obviously got their little hut. They got the little spaces, and you start to come across them.
Don't tunnels like this usually have a hatch of some kind over them?
Yeah, that big door, and it just closed behind you.
All right, so now we're into, this. There's some sort of weird, tribal sort of cult, I don't know, whatever word you want to use, but this island has not just indigenous wildlife, but people who are living there and doing some strange stuff.
And who have a sort of culture or something that's maybe a little scary.
One of the things that we're going to start presenting later on this year is the scavengers. The scavengers are previous, they're former survivors. They're people who also landed on this island and haven't been able to escape. So as a result, they've kind of banded together and created this social structure. And they're pretty vicious, so now she's this noob on the island trying to find out what's going on, and these guys are after her. And they're also after all the other survivors who managed to get off the Endurance as well. So yeah, there's a great story behind them. We'll present that a little bit later.
And a lot of folks are curious about, Laura's tomb raiding exploits in the future, of course. A lot of that was exploration was encouraged by finding an artifact or, sort of uncovering these hidden objects. Here, that exploration is still here, but it's a little more survival-based. Is that the idea?
I think the big thing for us is that when it comes to just tombs as an example, we're trying to make sure that we create these iconic moments. You know, we're setting the foundation for the franchise for the future, and we don't just want to sort of start her with twin pistols or jumping into a tomb for the first time.
Of course not.
We want to get to those moments where
you need to
when
get
you
for a
finish
knife
the
on
game,
a stick first.
Yeah, knife on a stick, a prying tool. So we want to get to that position where you feel, okay, I remember the first day that she stumbled across that tomb, and it meant so much to her at the time when she was trying to survive, but this took her back, and she went, I didn't expect to see this. And so it's those moments that make, for a franchise, and make those sort of, iconic things going forward.
There's a great line in one of the trailers, I think, where she actually says, I hate tombs, which really just shows you how this experience affects who she is as a person and who she becomes.
Yeah, I think that's kind of a nice playback for us. It was a bit of a play on words, but I hate snakes.
Yeah.
You know, we loved big indie fans as well.
Right,
but I think that for us is kind of just her mentality. She has a personality. You know, we don't want you just walking out of a tomb and going, okay, where's the next one? You know, when it's got creepy crawlies all over you, she's like, oh, I hate that.
Speaking of snakes, we saw the deer, which is not a hostile animal. But we've also mentioned and seen wolves in action. Any other indigenous wildlife you can tell us about here on the island?
Actually, no. Like, it's even just we're getting into uncharted territory in this demo now, so I hope we're coming to a roll because we're starting to give away stuff that I don't want to give away just yet.
Right. Well, actually, we've gotten to an interesting point here and met some faces that are not trying to actively murder her.
Yeah, these are some of the people that she starts to come across pretty quickly on the islands. This is a guy, Matthias, who we set the story up as he's a teacher. He's been on the island for a while. And this is Sam, one of our close friends who managed to survive the endurance, and she's just found out that she's still alive.
And meta-friendly face in Matthias, so not every member of not every person on the island is hostile or someone she was traveling with.
He looks very trustworthy, Chris.
He looks
extremely friendly.
Trustworthy with a knife in one hand.
Look at the handshake. And I'm sure
look
he
at that
needs
guy.
that crutch.
I would not feel scared to be hanging out with that guy at all.
I got to your den by crawling through a submerged tunnel marked with human skulls and candles and strange markings.
Yeah.
Wow, am I glad I'm here.
Yeah, you got to see the rest of it. It all plays out.
All right, Carl, Tomb Raider looking wonderful again at E3 this year. We, of course, want to know the release date. We're not going to be watching this at E3 next year. We're going to be able to play it by that time?
March 5th, 2013 is the date that we're going to hit release on 360, PlayStation 3, and PC. See, PC, Xbox, PlayStation 3.
There we go.
I've said it in different orders so many times, I'm confusing myself.
As long as you cover your bases, we're good.
Exactly.
Carl, thank you so much.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Folks,
Appreciate
that's
it.
Tomb Raider coming out next March. We'll definitely have more on it as soon as we can get more out of Carl. We're going to head over to Square Enix booth, fittingly enough, with Carlos Verdella. And then we're back on stage. Danny O'Dwyer is going to give us a look at Quantum Conundrum.